So, Bonnie, I would like to begin with you. You did speak about how you got into supply chain. So, I would not, my question was like, what made you stay in supply chain? It is not, it is not an easy task. It's very difficult to be in that role. So, what made you stay in supply chain?
Yeah, I'll go back to, I actually never wanted to be in manufacturing. So my father and grandfather both were welders. They worked for Caterpillar, and when I was growing up, it was back in the 70s and 80s, and they actually, their work was not consistent because those times were difficult. In the 1980s, especially, the Asian oil crisis made manufacturing very cyclical. And so many times they were without work, and they had to find odd jobs, and so it just didn't seem like an industry that I ever wanted to be a part of. So while they told me I should consider manufacturing, I wanted no part of it, which is why I went into a whole different direction. And so it never occurred to me ever to think about manufacturing or supply chain. So when I landed in logistics, what I liked about it was the variety, that there's something happening every day. What I also enjoyed about it was the people. As a supervisor, interacting in my HR capacity, interacting with the people, I just became curious about, what we do, how it impacts our customers, and so I just fell in love with it. I almost can't put my finger on what it is that I loved about it, other than at the end of every day, you understood whether you did a good job or not, and that I loved. And so I found that I was drawn to it. Even when I moved back into HR roles, I always found myself thinking about how do I get back into a business role, or how do I get back into a role where I'm closer to the customer and the place where we produce things.
So it's sometimes these challenges that kept you going. Yeah. Right? Now, manufacturing is always considered as a man's world, right? What kind of myths or stereotypes you had to encounter, maybe as a team member or even as a leader today? What do you have to encounter, to break that myth?
Well, I had many funny stories, actually. One of my roles, I went over to the UK as a senior leader. I mentioned my one big break where my boss sent me over to lead a business. It happened to be in the UK. In 2008 to run a business, a transmission business. So the whole time I was over there, whenever I would meet someone in the community, they would say, they noticed my American accent. Where are you from? America. Oh, what are you over here for? Your husband's job? No, my job. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm the MD for Turner Powertrain Systems. Oh, you don't look like an MD. And I would say, well, what does an MD look like? And they would say, not female. Like matter-of-factly. And I would say, well, I guess they look female now. I would try to be, somewhat humorous. Or I would get a lot of questions, almost like I was being interviewed to see if I really knew what I was talking about. Now, people on the shop floor would sometimes have nicknames for me that were not very flattering. Like they would call me the queen or the flower, or things that were not very nice. And over time, they grew to respect me a little bit. Some of my male colleagues would tease me, but over time, I could stand my ground and I could push back a little bit on them or try to educate them a little bit more. Or I would have allies. Like women can probably resonate with being interrupted a lot.
Yes.
I would stand up for myself and say, can I finish? And then some of my male colleagues that would say, oh, did you get up on the wrong side of the bed today? It was annoying. But I might have a male ally in the room. If I got interrupted, he might say, let her finish. And nobody would give him a hard time. They would just stop and let me finish. And so often, like just having an ally in the room, having somebody that I trusted to say, can you just listen for when I get interrupted, when I'm the only woman in the room, and just help me out? Because if I stand up for myself, then I get pegged as being cranky or, other words that are not so nice. But if you say it, they listen to you. And so often that's how I would deal with it.
Thank you, Bonnie. That was really insightful. Actually, taking that forward, I would just like to shift focus to Shubhankar and would just like to ask him, what role does mentors or allies, as Bonnie says, how do they play a very important role in an organization or maybe even in your career journey? And to all the ladies out here, how do they look for those mentors and allies? We always talk about formal mentoring, but there is something known as informal mentoring too. So how do they actually take advantage of that, or how do they look for it or they seek out that?
Yeah, very good question. And I'll take it in two parts. One is, in my case, what has happened, and then what is the role of a mentor. So frankly speaking, I never had a good mentor. Okay, so I had to find myself the hard way. But what it leads to is that you make a lot of mistakes, and then in hindsight you realize, for example, I did my master's in engineering, and then I took a long break before I did my MBA. Okay, and I was not very particular that I should do the MBA and with what kind of value it adds. So I was very happy with the job I was doing. But once I did Kelly, and then I realized, okay, it adds a lot of value. You start understanding the business a very different way. But if I had some mentor with me who would have guided me, hey, you should finish it off first before you have more higher responsibility. Because when I was plant manager for 3 factories. It was not easy. Kelly is almost a full-time MBA kind of thing. So it's very tough. So me, Ashwath, Jatin, we were in the same cohort. And we were all doing MBA. It was very tough. So going back, a mentor is, I guess you're very fortunate if you have a mentor. It's both formal and informal. It's not just your career pathing. It is also the way they can guide you. That we heard a lot about how mothers balance their life and professional life and personal life. That's the space where mentors come in. And it's not just a guidance of how you groom your career, but how you manage both sides of the story. I guess that's a very important role that the mentor has got to guide young professionals through their career journey. What are the right steps? Like if people come to me, and many people come to me today, should I change my job? Should I not change my job? I always say, go back, that you look at your long-term plan, where you want to be in next 10 years, and then take a call. Just don't change the job for the sake of changing a job. Will it add to your long-term career path? And many of them come back and say, I have not even thought of a career pathing actually. I just want to make this change because it's giving me a good opportunity and it's giving me maybe a hike. I say, it may be very short term, but will you eventually lead to where you want it to be? So I guess that's the role what the mentor plays. One is a short-term kind of a comfort, kind of where you can bouncing board, where you can go back and ask what to do. But in the long term, it also helps to decide what is the long-term career path thing, both professionally and also in the personal life, where you want to land up. Okay. Without that, what we do is that we take incremental steps, and maybe after 20 years, you realize you're not at the same place where you want it to be. So, but that's too late now. Now you cannot change it. So I guess that's the role of a mentor, very essential for young professionals, maybe equally for men and women. I guess it's nothing specific to women, but mentors are, and we ought to have a good mentoring program. In my initial years, when I started in Tata Motors, I had a formal mentor, but that was a very short period of 3 years. In Cummins, I never had a formal mentor. Tata Motors, we had a formal mentoring process, and it was very helpful. There was a very senior professional who was actually guiding me. At that time, I was a young engineer of 23 years of age. My mentorship was very helpful at that point of time. But eventually, when I realized at this point of time, a mentorship program, a mentor, a formal mentor, or an informal mentor is very important for you to see the long-term perspective, to really understand where you want to land up. You may decide, I will do this and I will not do that. Okay. Like for example, when I talk to my son, he is now working with Cummins in Columbus, and he's in engineering. He's working for the L platform. He is very clear that I don't want to get into your job. I don't want to get into manufacturing and supply chain. So he's in design, he's in engineering, and he wants to be in engineering. He says that's the place I feel I can add more value because he is good in all the engineering tools and technology that he has. He studied that. And he says, this is my career path. I said, okay, fine, but then we'll have a conversation that what do you want to do 10 years down the line? So I'm trying to be a mentor for him. So I guess that's the space what a mentor has, that you have to really give the vision, because young professionals may not be able to see what's there 20 years down the line. It may not be possible to visualize. What we do, we are not visualizing, we are retrospecting that what we could have done. So that's the role of a mentor, I guess. That's very important.
Yeah, I quite resonate with this is because a lot of time when I speak to, the team members, etc., everybody thinks, many of them think micro. Like I'm in this particular role, it's a vertical growth. It's high time we look at a macro. There are other roles available in the organization. So yeah, thank you so much, Shubhankar, for shedding light on this. And the next question is actually to both of you all. So I'll begin with you, Shubhankar. We don't see women as plant leaders in Cummins, right? And I think there are many women out here who aspire to be plant leaders. So what skill sets do you think they need to acquire? It's very important for them to understand what skills they would need to acquire to succeed. And I think what are the paths they need to create to have or to thrive in this role?
Okay, difficult question, but I guess I'll take it in two parts again. First is what are the skills that you need to have? First of all, to become a plant manager, if it is specific to a plant manager or operations leader or even a little broader supply chain leader, you need to love people, okay? You're going to deal with people only. You're not going to deal with machines. Machines are just a support system. You're going to deal with people, hundreds of them. So you have to internally realize that if you are willing to connect with people in hundreds, in 50s, in scores, and you enjoy that, then you are really fit for being a plant manager. You really do. It's nothing that a male can become a plant manager or a woman cannot be a plant manager. That's not the case. You need to be very conversant. You need to really feel that you can make a change to their lives. You can make a change to their lives, to shape their lives. You can give a better workplace for them. You can give a better environment to them. So when I started Fulton, that was 15 years back, 2010, I guess one of the jobs which we were trying to do. So this is a unique story in Fulton. We brought in a technology, and that was one of the state-of-the-art factory for Cummins. Almost 95% of the machines were imported. There were German machines and machines come from US, and the workforce came from villages of Fulton. They didn't read and write English. They were all from native place, and so we wanted them to, because the rule for that time was 70% of the workforce has to be from the local state. You cannot bring people from outside. So we could not have brought people from Jamshedpur or other places to be here. So they have to be native. And we hired fresh. We hired from ITIs. They could not even read the instructions out there. So we had those machines out there, and we had this workforce. So our job was to make sure that they can do it. So we ran actually English classes in the evening for them to understand and converse and write. And Anant was very clear that time that all instructions has to be in English. There's no vernacular instruction. So there were machines where they do, today they run those machines, they do the programming. Other thing which we decided was that we wanted to make the shop floor gender agnostic. So it has to be any station where a male and woman can work equally flexibly with equal amount of stress. So going back to answer your question, first thing is that, am I ready to make a change or impact a large population of employees? Okay, that is something which has to be in your mind. Okay, it's not you have to be great in operational excellence or supply chain. No, can you make changes to their lives? Can you make it better for them and make them be part of the organization? That inclusiveness, that boldness to face, and it is both ways. It's not just doing all employee addresses. If there is a union issue, you have to be on the shop floor and face the union. There may be hundreds of people out there. So that is where that human centricity is the most important characteristic which you need for becoming a plant manager. And if that is missing, I guess you don't rather take that job, because you have to be on the shop floor, you have to be on the ground, you have to love that thing, you need to enjoy. If that is seen as a burden, then that's not the role you should play, very clear. And that applies to both men and women. You need not be on the shop floor if you don't like it. It's not a compulsion, but if you like to be there, You want to do that Gemba, you want to be on the machine, you want to talk to the people, understand how he or she is feeling today morning, are they really motivated to do the improvements, then that's the right space.
So Bonnie, your take on this, we would really love to hear.
First of all, Shubhankar gets a big gold star for saying it is about people, because we are in the people business. And we might think that we're in the engine business and the genset business, but we are in the people business. So I agree, it is first and foremost about the ability to lead people, the ability to inspire people. I also think to be a plant manager, you have to have some problem-solving capability. You have to be able to make the complex simple. You have to be able to have some communication skills, because you have to have the ability to take, I think a site leader role is complex because you have to be able to communicate with people at the shop floor level, and you have to take a lot of communication that people like me and levels between me and the plant manager, load on top of you as the plant leader and simplify it. All right, so you have to have good communication skills, and you have to have the ability to manage conflict, because there's a lot of conflict, right? You have conflict within the plant, you have conflict between plant and sometimes union, you have community conflict, so there's a lot of conflict, so the ability to manage conflict. All the technical things can be learned. So in my view, obviously you have to have the ability to learn and the ability to connect dots, but that to me is like the lowest thing on the pole. Now, we get very few women in the pipeline for plant manager roles. Maybe partly because the perception is most plant managers have years of experience in the shop, and maybe partly because the roles don't look desirable from a hours of work perspective. So we've got work to do to change that perception, because the skills that women typically bring, collaboration, caring, communications, those are the kind of skills that we actually need to lead a factory. When I moved out of HR to lead a plant, it was a terrific opportunity for me, and I know actually a lot of HR people that have moved out of HR into a line leadership role and have been very successful. Why? Because they have people leadership skills. So we need to do more of that.
And I would like to add that one thing which we are trying to do, and I guess now we are blessed that Bonnie has the entire operations and IT and digital. I guess going forward, if we are moving in the right direction, the factory of the future would be simpler, more inviting for women and even men both, because we're going to try to make it simpler, we're going to make it more agile, so you may not have to go every day to that same machine. You may be able to see that machine from a distance, but have the same impact, so you go and fix it when it is needed. So that, if you're able to use technology to take that burden of standing on the shop floor. So when I started, 1991, I had to stand on the shop floor 8 hours, maybe 12 hours. Okay, because that's every time a machine goes under breakdown, I have to call a maintenance guy and get it fixed. Now, if you can change that, if you can digitally do that and predict that this is going to fail tomorrow, maybe for the professionals or the engineers, men and women both, their lives are going to become easier. I don't discount that you still have to go to the shop and talk to people, but maybe you talk to the people in a more effective way when you really need to communicate. You don't need to stand all 12 or 8 hours out there to just run the factory. So that's the future direction. If we can make it simpler, digitally connected, more automated, frugal automation definitely. But I guess that can be a more welcoming situation, and that will also help us attract talent, because it's not just women. Even today, men doesn't want to go to the shop floor. It's both. We don't want fresh engineers, they don't want to go. My son doesn't want to go to a shop floor. He'd rather sit in a CAD desk and do programming out there, frankly speaking. But can we change that perception? Can we make it more friendly? Because there is a technology available today which can make it more friendly, more communicating with the human. So a cyber-human connect can happen. So that's the factory of the future. We are trying. I guess we are blessed that we have Bonnie with everything all together. So I guess that's a path, that's a journey that should be more welcoming for all of you.
So just taking a cue from what Shubhankar said and our discussion yesterday on AI. So now since things are going to be more tech-driven, what do you think that women should reskill or upskills? What should they acquire to be successful in the manufacturing space?
Yeah, I think this, of course, is not limited to women. I think this is for everyone. But everybody, everything is going digital. So 15 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Peter Diamandis said, companies that don't become software companies will die, which of course we all thought was hyperbole. It is actually true. If we don't become a software company, we die, because everything is going digital. And I think all of supply chain, I thought this 5 years ago, I think it more so today than I thought 5 years ago, needs to become digital. In fact, the whole company, I'm now charged with reimagining how we operate the company. AI and other types of automation are going to reshape the way we work. And if we don't figure out how to harness the power of that, we will fall behind, because everybody else is figuring it out. So the way I'm thinking about the power of my organization now, having supply chain, quality, Cummins services, IT, digital, new and recon parts. I always forget something, but I think that's everything. And having the Cummins operating system as part of my responsibility is, how do we organize the work in workflows? How do we understand where we get end-to-end processes, particularly in Cummins services, so that we can begin to imagine how we implement AI where we truly get the value, where we can really scale up. Because you can't implement AI in pieces of the business. Like, you can't implement AI in IT or in planning or in logistics or in EBU or components in isolation and really get value. You have to look at workflows, end-to-end processes. And so we're really thinking about, like, how do we scale Cummins services? How do we really look at the way the work flows? And then how do we harness some of the automation, AI being obviously a big opportunity, to really scale up and look at the power of keeping the human in the loop. So leveraging AI and people to get greater insights, allow our people to work on higher value work. There's a lot of things I'm sure you can think about in any function or part of the business that you work on. We don't get to things because a lot of what we do is manual. Are there things that we could actually get to that are more advanced or higher level, if many of the things that we actually do that are on spreadsheets or require manual manipulation could actually be automated? So these are the things that we're thinking about, and we actually have the opportunity to do much more quickly now that we have these operations functions all together in one organization.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I think we would love to continue with this chat. There would be so many questions that everyone is having, but it would be unfair for me to keep the two leaders. So Bonnie and Shubhankar, I would just need your closing comments, because for all the women out here and women on the call, it would be very important. So your closing comments would be really.
Yeah, I'll make a closing comment, but I probably should finish answering the actual question you asked, which is what you can do to upskill. And that is, if you haven't started using AI, start playing with it. Copilot on your Microsoft. Start asking it questions. Like, ask it a simple question. Please scan my email and tell me what actions I need to take. Simple question. See what it tells you. It's very cool. Like, just start playing with it if you're not comfortable with it. If you don't have a license, ask about getting a license. We also have Enterprise Chat GPT. If you're more advanced, that might be something that you might get a license to. If you haven't had training, there's workshops and training coming. Like, get educated. It's coming. If you aren't comfortable with it, I was very uncomfortable with it 6 months ago. I'm certainly not an expert, but I'm feeling comfortable. It's coming. We're going to change the company. This group, if there's any group that's going to be a part of it, It's this group, so please be ready. In closing, we have a terrific representation of women in India. I'm really proud of that, even in manufacturing. Across the company in manufacturing, not so much. 9% women across the company in manufacturing. In India, it's higher. I'm proud of that. We're not where we need to be. We need to do more. Please believe in yourself. Women tend to give up on their aspirations when they don't feel supported. I hope you know, we have two of the most senior women in this company, in myself and Jen, that believe that women have the ability to do anything that they desire to do in this company, and we support that. If there's anything that I can do to help you, don't hesitate to reach out. Mentoring is helpful, but think about what you want to get out of a mentoring relationship, and don't hesitate to tell people what your aspirations are. I mentioned it yesterday in the town hall. No one can read your mind. So women have a tendency to put your head down and work hard and expect that people will reward you for it. And sometimes that happens, but often people don't know what you want. So don't hesitate to tell people what you want. I had a young lady, I'll just tell you a quick story. I had a young lady who I spoke to at a CWIC conference, which is a Women in Technology conference a few months ago. I spoke to a group and I said just that, like, people can't read your mind. If you want something, say it. And she was very nervous, but she reached out to me and asked for a brief conversation. And she said, I've been in a master black belt role for 7 years. I want to grow. I don't know how to grow, but I feel stuck. Can you help me, navigate my career? So I agreed to meet with her when I was in the UK last week. And I connected her with a couple of manufacturing leaders while I was there, and then I connected her with someone in my organization. 2 meetings she had. She already has a potential job offer because she has incredible skills. She just didn't know how to move forward, and she didn't tell anybody. Just by having the courage to send an email and ask the question and say, I want to grow, I don't know how to grow. She went from spending 7 years in the same salary grade in the same job to now potentially having a job offer. So if you feel stuck and you don't know how to move forward in your career, maybe it's because you haven't told somebody what you want. In closing, thank you for being here today. I wish you all well. It's always nice to see you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Shubhankar, over to you.
I guess Bonnie said all. I guess to me, there is no taboo, there is no domain where you cannot work. So be it supply chain and manufacturing. Because tomorrow, or even today, it is no more a domain of any particular gender or a caste, creed, religion. It's a mind game. It's absolutely a mindset. It's a mind game. And more you equip yourself, what you heard from Bonnie on the digitalization and AI, it's all mind game, and anybody can do it. The only thing is that you need to have the courage, you need to have the conviction that yes, I can do it. So wish you all the best, and I think you are doing great, you're already part of supply chain, and if you want to take up more front-facing roles like in plant manager, it's most welcome. We are looking for more women plant managers. Okay, most welcome. If you think that's the right thing to do, maybe, and may not be for life, maybe for 2 to 3 years. It's a good human-facing role. It's you meet a lot of people. So wish you all the best. I guess we are in the very right time with Bonnie out here with everything in one fold. Okay, and hopefully we'll see a different supply chain in next 3 years. Not only supply chain operations, which is more human enabled, but it's what we are talking, it's a augmented operations maybe, where it's a technology and human beings both work together, because that's what is needed tomorrow. If we don't transform ourselves, there will be somebody who will do it faster than us. I'll just give a small example. So there are 2 companies who were software companies, who were actually software companies kind of thing, which is both Xiaomi and Huawei. They used to manufacture phones, and now they're launching cars. In 1,000 days. The first car of Xiaomi, they launched in 1,000 days, and they didn't spend a lot. They just spent $1.6 billion for a clean set platform, and that's competing now globally. But what they're realizing is that because they are a software company, their integration of the systems are much more seamless compared to a traditional pass car company because now the car is all software. So for us also, the entire operation and supply chain will become actually a kind of a software where we're going to want to have end-to-end visibility. And if you don't do that in these very difficult times, you're losing that ability to be agile and resilient because the world is changing, because it's not the same world today. It is very different from what it was 5 years back. So it's tariff, war, everything's different. So what you need is a visibility. We need much faster information. And that's going to happen because the AI, and by the way, the technology is also coming very fast, growing very fast. So for going back to you, equip yourself with the right technologies, and there is no gender bias in that. It is your learning capability, okay? And if you do well in that learning, I guess there is no limit. It is limitless. It is just a mind game going forward. Wish you all the best, and thank you for being with us, and good that you are all part of supply chain and operations.